Okay, looks like I am live, and thought a bit of a random one, but while I wait for anybody to show up on a Saturday night, I'm sure you guys have got better things to do. Salute. A very light, somewhat dry white wine. So, I've just an idea that's come up that I don't know if anybody would be interested in or not. So I thought I'd throw it out there. Internet's been kind of crappy lately, so hopefully this stays up and works. But if not, let me know that you can hear me. That's another good point. So the stream I wanted to have tonight, it's a bit unusual. I'm going to ask you guys to let me know what you think about this idea. So it came about as a roundabout way. Somebody on Gab posted about how the Rhodesian military, when it was still Rhodesia, was, they had like kill ratios to the so-called guerrillas, which eventually won and got, thank you, Charlie, the chased. That what were then so-called freedom fighters / guerrillas eventually took over, became, Zimbabwe and so on. But they had the white-led military had like kill ratios are around 60-1. If you're interested in that, there's a site called Rhodesianwar.org or something like that, or .com, I can't remember. It was on Gab. If you follow me on Gab, it'll be somewhere in my timeline. Anyway, and this guy was saying, well, you see, if that's the case, 1 million white men will round up anybody that's not white and take over the whole of the United States and Northern America and whatever. It was a complete misconception, because the reports were between 1967 and 1980, so that's when these guys were talking about. So the technology was very different, the battlefield was very, very different, and the people that were fighting was very different. Now, I lived in Africa for some 25 years or maybe more, and I can tell you that a modern day guerrilla warfare in Northern America would bear zero relationship to a relatively well trained white led, but not completely white, because they had a lot of black guys in the military, fighting what were essentially Soviet supplied rebels of completely African descent. Now, it's just, first, there's so many parameters that the people don't get. And I explained that in my response on Gab, which was well, first of all, the technology is completely different. Secondly, you have zero understanding of the kind of balls that the Rhodesian special forces / military guys had, both their leaders and the guys under them. These guys are super, super hardcore. I mean, they would do things that in modern military parlance would be considered psychotic, crazy, suicidal shit. To tell you, one of the things they used to do, they used to go in with these Caspers, these armored vehicles that are sort of V-shaped, so that when mines blow up under them, they don't really destroy the whole thing, they just blow up the tires or whatever. Anyway, they'd go in there with maybe one or two black guys, and then the white guys would be in blackface, driving or whatever. They'd be literally in blackface, okay? So made up to look like they're black and they're white, okay? And going to these camps with pretending to be officers of the enemy, and they'd be where's your top guy, and line up in the parade, and they would just start giving orders, and the rebels would end up lining up, and then one of these guys would pop out from the turret, get onto the 50 caliber, and just start to chew up 50, 60, 100 guys. And this was just a group of 3 or 4 guys taking out a platoon inside their own base. I mean, it's role-playing shit, that that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is that the Africans that were supplied by the Soviets with like AKs and whatever, these guys have got no concept of what any kind of military training or anything like that. They're just literally, I don't want to get another strike, but we're talking about average Zimbabwean IQ is around 85 or something like that, and they didn't look after the weapons. They had no real training. They were just like, oh, here's an AK. You're now a big boy with a nice machine gun. Now, if you were to have some kind of civil war in the United States / Canada or whatever, and let's make it what I said in Gab was like, well, what if you have the so-called white supremacists on one side and all the diversity is our strength on the other side with the blue-haired fat people or whatever. The thing is, you've got technology now that is completely different, and the diversity is our strength guys would probably have narrative support, which means they would have access to things like drones, aircrafts, and so on. While the other guys may have some, depending on how it goes. I don't know, maybe some southern states will have some bunch of rednecks on aircraft or helicopters or what have you. But I think that the so-called heavy weapons military stuff would be slanted towards the diversity is our strength narrative, because they are essentially in charge of the military now. And you got to keep in mind that the average Rhodesian was a super fit guy who would go days with just like some dried meat and water and a lot of ammo. So to give you a comparison, unless you can do like a 30-kilometer hike with a 30-kilo pack, which is not a heavy pack. 30 kilos is like your rifle, ammunition, a bit of water, a bit of food. That's about it. That's about 30 kilos. Some medikit stuff and whatever in there if you're careful. If you can't do a 30-kilometer hike in like 6 hours with like a 30-kilo pack while doing hectic map reading, keep moving the whole time, work as a coordinated small group, but that can work separately. So if you're like 6 guys, you can do like 3 groups of 2s, and you're like meet up at random points that you decide. You've got escape routes, you've got like backup plans, and you coordinate with other groups that are similarly like that. If you don't have that kind of capability, because what you'd be talking about is, the guys that would be fighting on both sides are essentially probably overweight, boastful Yankees. And, they're not really going to get too far. So anyway, that brought up a bunch of other things, which I was thinking, about like 1980s weapons and stuff compared to what there is now. Night vision technology, starlight technology that, was barely out of the woods then is like everywhere now. And that got me on to thinking about guns and stuff. And then I started talking to some people, and I said, oh, why don't you do reviews of guns? And here comes my sales pitch in a long-winded way. So, Matthew Clark says, driving a tanker truck through Chicago, topic seems fitting. So Matthew has some war stories, obviously. Very good. And Wooly Ram says, Godspeed, Matthew. Then we've got Helen of Troy that says, hello, hi. I think that seems to be a new person. Thanks, Wooly. What about 14-year-olds with AKs? Yeah, now you're starting to enter, I suppose it's Black Afghanistan out there. Well, Africa is a very unique place. If you guys have seen Black Hawk Down, you should watch that film because it has some very interesting parts to it. And one of them is that, while it is easy to scatter crowds of armed Africans that are not particularly, trained in military tactics or anything like that, while yes, you can, a small force of guys that know what they're doing can overcome that quite easily. The thing is, they are a little bit like zombies. They will keep coming back, and even though they're like losing 20, 30, 40 guys against 4, but they'll just keep coming, and they'll just keep throwing random bullets in your direction, shooting eyes closed, just, yeah. But eventually, the sheer weight of numbers will get you. I mean, in Zimbabwe, when they're attacking white farms and so on, most of these farms are not at all well defended or built with defense or any kind of security in mind. And there's reports of this at that Rhodesian war.org or Rhodesian something, I can't remember. Um, like I said, it's on Gab. If you follow me on Gab, you'll go on my timeline, you'll see it. And yet, there were like farmers fighting back, which is generally, sometimes the husband wasn't even home. It was just like the wife and the kids fighting back, and they'd take out 30, 40, 50 guys. But they'd be attacked by 120 people, most of them armed with pangas and machetes and AKs. So it's a different kind of mentality, that you got to deal with. My brother, who's doing what I used to do in like close protection, he had an event where, they got like four or five carloads of guys with handguns come to try and take out his client. And because him and the other guy that he works with had long weapons, rifles and so on, semi-auto rifles, they just basically put themselves behind the block of the truck and the engine block and said, "Oh, right, guys, you want to start playing? We can go roll right now. Otherwise, lie down, face down, otherwise we'll start popping people." And they ran out of zip ties. I mean, they got everybody to lie down. They disarmed like 20, 30 guys. And they ran out of zip ties. And there's just two of them. There were the only two white guys there, by the way. So they kind of stand out. And they said, well, shit, we just took their leader. And what could we do? We took all their guns and we sent the other guys on their way. Because what the fuck? We're not cops. The cops are not going to come here because they're scared. And it's just... And then once they got this one leader guy to sort of question him and find out how to like deal with the opposing team, let's say, they had to protect him from getting killed by the people they were protecting, because they had a crowd of people that were like their guys, and they wanted to stone this guy to death. So it's just it's quite a hairy sort of situation. But anyway, long roundabout story comes to the thing that people have asked me, why don't you do gun reviews? And I thought, I'd actually like doing that, but there's a couple of things. In Italy, if I were to do gun reviews, I wouldn't be able to like show you properly, like, the shooting of the gun, taking it apart, which, to be fair, most of that is kind of pointless, because what are you going to do? Just watch a guy shoot a gun into a target and, take the gun apart and put it together. A lot of guys do those kind of reviews, but I was thinking, what about custom made reviews? So you tell me a gun that you're thinking of getting or that you've got, and then you tell me what it is that you'd want to use that gun for. Hypothetically, in Minecraft, in real life, whatever. Maybe you just want to do speed shooting, maybe you want to do like close protection work, maybe you just want it for home defense and whatever. And I'll give you my thoughts on it. You can send me a picture of the gun, or I can go and find a picture of the gun, or whatever. But I don't. That doesn't mean I will show you physically the gun myself. I do have guns and whatever, but there's Italy is not America, so I don't really want to sort of push that envelope. But I'm thinking it would still be quite an interesting thing, and I thought, well, okay, if I'm gonna do that, let's see if there's enough interest in that, which I don't know. So I thought, well, okay, what about, there is some things that we just want. We don't necessarily need them, but we want them. And I'm thinking there's a 1911, it's a second-hand gun. I spoke to the guy. It's a really nice piece. I really like it. It's €1,000. And for a 1911, it's good. Now, the guy was a speed shooter. He's like a competition guy. But he says he's only like put like 500 rounds to it or so, which it's not a huge amount of ammo, and it looks well kept. So I'm thinking, okay, if there's enough interest, you guys can, click on the link at the bottom, which is thekurganet.com, and go to the donate button. Now, this is what I'll do. If you do donate to the Kurganet, just put 4 gun reviews, and you can put whatever gun you want. You can put a message there, so you can put whatever gun you want me to review, and throw a donation at it. If I hit €1,000 that I can buy this gun, then I'll make that a regular feature. I'll do it like once a week or something. I don't know. You guys tell me how often you want it, and I'll try and I can't do it every day, but like I could probably do one review a week. I'm pretty sure I can do that. Maybe a couple as well. So if you've got an interest in that, support me. That way I can get the toy I want. And if I do get that toy, I will do a review on it. I'm gonna just check up on the laws, make sure I'm not doing anything weird, but it's a very pretty 1911 as well. So there you go. I didn't know if to do it or not because it feels a bit grifty. I thought, well, what am I asking guys to buy me a gun and another gun, But yeah, I thought, fuck it, At least that way I know there is interest. If there isn't, then it's just like, yeah, do your thing, but we don't give a shit. Then wow, what's the point? But the idea would be that I'd give you a review based on what you want. So since there's how many of you? There's like 13, lucky 13 for some. Give me a gun that you want me to review right now. Give me a caliber, give me whatever it is, and I'll tell you what I think about it in real. The point is this review would be for real life applications, okay? If you don't specify, I'll try and cover a few bases. If you specify what you want to use it for, then I'll cover that base. And like I said, they can be hypothetical things, or historical things. If I don't know enough about a gun, I'll tell you that. I'll say, look, I don't know about that one, so or I haven't shot it or whatever. But I've had a pretty eclectic life, so I've handled a lot of stuff, including fully auto stuff. So I think I've got a decent handle, and I worked in close protection for a long time, and I come from a family that deals in security and has done that kind of work for many years. All the males in my family have done criminal investigations alongside the cops and stuff like that. So I have an understanding of things that I think, might be useful for some people. So that's the idea anyway. So while you're here in the chat, if you've got a gun that you want to talk to me about or you want me to say, I'll do a freebie right here, like see if it interests you guys. And you can also ask about, obviously I don't know the laws of every country. Most of you guys are from America, but not all of you. So you can ask me about the specific conditions in your country, which how to go about certain things, as in make sure your gun is safe, and how what you can and can't do, which I won't necessarily know if I'm not familiar with the laws in your country. But and getting back to Matthew Clark, yeah, 14-year-olds with AKs, that's not uncommon. We had the British rugby team come to Cape Town, and they got mugged by like a 9-year-old with a penknife. They were pretty smart about it. They just pulled out their wallet and gave the guy some money because, they were English guys. And when they spoke to one of the guys I used to work with was a complete asshole. But anyway, him and his friend met up these like rugby players, which were very polite. They were really gentlemen. It's true what they say. I think that like rugby is a gentleman's sport. Or like it's a thug sport played by gentlemen, and football is a gentleman's sport played by thugs. These guys were all polite, they were all friendly, they were self-deprecating, making fun about themselves getting mugged by like a 9-year-old with a penknife or whatever, and his buddy, two kids with like some knives. And this guy I used to work with and his friends started to make fun of them. Oh, you guys got like, in a very South African way, you guys get like mugged by like a lighty, hey, with like a penknife. Oh, what kind of pussies are you? Just they were going on and on. But I was like, look, what the fuck? These guys come from England. They're why should he risk getting stabbed for like what is the equivalent of like probably like not even £5 to him? The little mugger is happy. He gets like his £5. The other guy gets a story to tell his friends at home, and he doesn't get cut. It's like, what's wrong with that? The rugby guys did great. Doesn't matter that you weigh 150 kilos and the 12-year-old is like, 30 kilos wet. because that 12-year-old is used to stabbing people daily. So he's going to put a whole bunch of holes in you before you know what's going on. You know, it's so, so, um, Woolly Ram says a gun is still lethal regardless of the hands holding it. Yeah, sometimes to the guy holding it more than the other people, but yes. The IDF only does well because the enemies are Arab irregulars. Comparing past glories to the present is hubris. Hello, Slanty Chauffeur Bear. Yeah, it is hubris. Matthew Clark says Glock 43X. If not fired, that any Glock 19, etc. for concealment. Oh, right. I am personally not a fan of Glocks. It's a personal thing. I'm not talking about reliability. I hate the way they look. I hate the way they feel in my hand. They feel like a cheap plastic toy. And I know that's all sort of aesthetic and subjective. So, I get that it's sort of not a practical um, point. However, there is a practical point because if that's your attitude to the gun, the attitude that I have, which is negative, I don't like it, I don't like the gun, you're just going to do certain things a little bit different. You're not going to make sure that you've got the best form-fitted holster because, shit, it's just a Glock. I don't really like this one. You're not going to, you're just going to be, I'm going to make a really bad analogy. It's kind of like when you're banging a girl you're not really into. It's sort of like, well, she comes, she goes, who cares, So that aspect of it, if you're like me and you just don't like Glocks, maybe get something else. However, having got over that sort of subjective perspective of it, in terms of concealment, it would be helpful for me to know how tall you are, how big your hands are, that sort of thing. So while I'm talking, feel free to add some information. My brother, who understands how I feel about Glocks, and being my brother, I have some influence, and he sort of tended to agree with me a little bit. But he swears by the Glock 19. He says, look, I know what you're saying, I know, but the thing is with the Glock 19, I can't miss. It's natural for me. It comes up right. I hit whatever I aim at. It's a great gun. It's got a lot of ammo. So, from a practical perspective, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think it's, in terms of the amount of ammo, I don't want to misspeak now. I think the Glock 9, I don't know the Glock 43 at all. The Glock 19 I'm a little bit more familiar with. I can't remember if I fired one or not. I probably have somewhere along the line, but I just don't like how they feel. And it's not a natural gun for me to shoot correctly with. So I am biased outright. But if it comes up good for you, if you can shoot properly with it, as far as I know, I haven't personally put it through the grinder, but they're very reliable guns. They're really quite safe, simple to operate, which I think is very important in a practical situation. As far as concealment goes, my take on concealment is different from most people. I used to work with a 357 Magnum 4-inch barrel GP100, which, being a revolver is bulkier. I never had a problem concealing it. I am 6'2", but I'm not a particularly wide guy. I'm 6'2", but I'm now like 93, 4 kilos, something like that. But back then I was like 85. I was probably 10 kilos lighter as well. As you age, your bones tend to get heavier. You tend to gain a bit of weight as well around the belt, which I didn't have then, and so on. I never had a problem concealing it. I always wore jackets, sort of loose clothing, that sort of thing. That was my job. So, and I was super paranoid about having a concealed firearm. I also used the Heckler and Koch USP 40 in 40 caliber, but that gun misfired regularly. It had some problem with the firing pin. It sometimes didn't print hard enough on the cartridge. So, one every 20, 30 shots, it would misfire. And that was like, fuck that, I'm not using that ever again. Because the job I had was, I was the guy that stays behind. So it was pretty, if something went wrong, I couldn't afford a misfire. So my take on concealment is, if you use it for work, if you are not like an occasional user, in other words, if it's like, if you're a close protection guy, whatever, you can literally have a 50 caliber Desert Eagle and conceal it. You just have to get the right things that work for you. I'm not a fan of particularly small guns, although I am a huge fan of the PPK. But even the PPK, I want to get a magazine with extension so that the little finger gets on it, because PPK is too small for me. Like, one finger goes off, which is fine. I still shoot fine with it. But I like that one because of aesthetics and whatever. But it's actually a good little gun. It's really, I was very impressed with it. I thought, I'm just getting it because I like it and whatever. But and it was cheap. It was a second-hand one in perfect condition. I don't think the guy fired a clip through it, but a magazine through it. But I'm not a fan of small guns, especially if they're like your primary weapon, or like you're gonna work with it, because I've got big hands. So I need a gun that I can positively get my hand on and out quick, whichever way you carry it, in stressful situations, with clothing, with winter, with summer. I need a positive grip on the gun straight away. Of course, in certain situations, maybe you can't have the big gun that you like, and you need to have, say, the PPK, like, James Bond on a shoulder holster. And then you have to adapt for that. You have to train for that. You have to practice for that. You have to make sure you can get there quickly enough, or whatever you carry. So as far as concealment goes, I think that's just spend some time figuring it out. Work in front of the mirror, like draw and fire, draw and fire, draw and fire. Is it concealed? Is it concealed? You've got a girlfriend, a wife, a friend, whatever, like, is it printing? Is the gun printing? Because, maybe if you're a trucker, you're sitting in a truck all day, and maybe you do have a long t-shirt or whatever that's covering it, but it's printing the gun, and you don't realize. You're tired, you've driven 15 hours, you get out of the truck stop, and you don't realize your gun is completely printing on your t-shirt or whatever. If I was a trucker, which I'm not, but if I were, my gun, while I'm in the truck, would probably be like not even on my person. It would be like on a welded holster inside the truck cabin, so that I can get to it from wherever I am in the cabin really quick. Maybe it would be concealed, but it could be like a tea cloth over it, or a special build thing. I wouldn't even have the gun on me, because if I'm on the truck and somebody's going to try and hijack me, I would want to be able to get to that gun so quick and just doom, whatever. And then I would practice for whenever I stop, I would take the gun from wherever it is and put it into my purpose-built holster on my person, whichever way it works, so that it's not printing on me when I'm driving the whole time. It's secure when I'm driving. I would never leave a gun in a car. I've never ever left a gun in a car unattended, or anything like that. My gun lived with me. Like, it was never out of arm's reach. Even if I was alone at home, I would take the gun to the bathroom with me. I wouldn't leave it on the counter in the kitchen if I'm going to the toilet. It would come to the toilet with me, even if it was empty. But you have to get into that mindset. If you get into that mindset, then a lot of these questions answer themselves, really. I hope that's answered your question. I'll go down the chat and I'll answer more questions if you've got more details on it. Sam Wereb says, okay, Taurus G3C 9mm for home defense and as a truck car gun. Not interested in concealed carry in public at the time. Okay. As a truck car gun, what I just said applies to that. I'm not a fan of Taurus, but I am biased again, because I grew up and my dad had a couple of Tauruses, and Tauruses were cheap, nasty guns back then. I'm talking 1980s. But I believe Taurus has become a much better company, and maybe they've improved their son. I'm not a fan of 9mm. My my philosophy on calibers for a working gun, a gun that you got with you, is use the biggest, heaviest caliber you can that you can shoot comfortably and accurately with, and you don't flinch. I was used to my 357. I'm used to the 357. I don't find the 357 kicks too much for me or scares me or anything like that. To be perfectly honest with you, I've fired a 50 caliber Desert Eagle, and that's super comfortable. Um, because the gun is very heavy. I didn't find, the Desert Eagle is a much slower gun than my 357. I wouldn't be able to like draw and fire the same speed, nowhere near. But the the accuracy of the Desert Eagle is proportional to the accuracy of a good revolver, which is higher than any semi-automatic pistol. I don't care what anybody says. There's a bunch of American guys I know that will say, "No, you don't understand. Like pistols now. Like if your barrel is moving, your accuracy is never going to match a fixed barrel gun that's well made. The Ruger GPs are like well made guns, unless you get a faulty one. They're accurate. The Desert Eagle has got a fixed barrel. It's basically a blowback system, the same like a Beretta 22. Most Beretta 22s are blowback systems with a fixed barrel. Beretta 22s are scary accurate. When I was a little kid, and my gun, my dad used to let me shoot with his 22, and I was like super accurate with that. So any pistol that's not a fixed barrel gun, I've got a little bit of reservation against, because I believe that accurate shot placement is the most important thing, and the second most important thing is the biggest caliber you can comfortably shoot. Now, if you're a little girl with like thin wrists and all you can shoot comfortably is a 2.2 with like subsonic ammo, fine, better that than nothing. But I'm not a huge fan of 9mm because I've shot a lot of things in my life with all sorts of calibers, and that's where my philosophy comes from. Biggest caliber you got puts things down better. Shot placement comes first, but let's put it this way: a a 2.2 round that just misses a vital spot is not as good as a 44 Magnum round that just misses a vital spot. Because even if the 44 Magnum round doesn't quite hit it, it's gonna still blow the crap out of it just from hydroshock and whatever. So again, not a fan of Taurus, not a fan of 9mm, but I am biased. If that's a gun you're comfortable with, okay. For home defense, I wouldn't go with a 9mm. For home defense, but again, I'm speaking for the average person. Okay, I don't know your background. Maybe you're a guy that trains regularly and fires 300 rounds every week at the range and at a dynamic range. So I don't know. And also it depends on your situation. Like home defense here, I'm in like rural northern Italy. Not a lot happens here. The cops caught like one 20-year-old Brazilian that like was breaking into houses, who was so dumb he still had the stolen stuff in his bedroom. So, but you don't want to find a 20-year-old Brazilian in your home. I don't think he'd come down here. And even if he did, I probably wouldn't even need a gun, because he's unlikely to be armed with a weapon. But you never know. I met a guy from Milan who lives nearby here, who was in his house. Some Romanians came in with machine guns, literally machine guns, and then started like abusing the women and like the kids, and pistol whipping the guys, beat the crap out of them. And they got lucky because a neighbor heard or something and called the cops, so the guys ran away. And there was like apparently like a shootout, battle, chase, or whatever. And I don't think they caught them. Anyway, the guy survived, and since then he's bought a shitload of guns, because he's like, fuck that, that's never happening to me again. So you never know. But generally speaking, the chances of, and that is important, like if you're following all the rules and that. But my granddad, he used to sleep with a shotgun next to his bed. My granddad had like 12 or 15 shotguns, and I found out later he had a broom handle Mauser somewhere hidden in the basement, which I don't know what happened to that gun. That really disturbs me. But he used to, he was like 85 and used to sleep with a shotgun next to his bed. And when I found out, I was like, what, Dad? Granddad, why are you sleeping with? He goes, I'm 85 years old. Some guy breaks into my fucking house. I'm not gonna like have a long conversation with him. I'm just gonna pull both triggers and say good night. Fuck it. What are they gonna do? Put me in jail? So what? I get fed 3 times a day. I even get conjugal visits with your grandma if I really need to. So that was his attitude. And for home defense, a shotgun works great. If you're gonna get a shot, there's a pretty cheap Winchester. Is it SPX, SFX? It's like a 7 or 8 shot, 7+1 shotgun. Great for home defense, and that's something even like I've always, my kids are too small, but like, told my wife, and when my kids will get older, I'll be like, look, if somebody breaks into the house, you don't go and chase, you just, load up the shotgun, wait in the corner, in the corner of your home that's got the thickest walls, and wait for the door to open, and unless it's somebody you can just pull the trigger. And if you're shooting buckshot with a shotgun, you don't have to worry too much. That's like, depending on which buckshot you got, like 920, like 9mm balls flying at your head, the body, it's at 2 or 3 meters. Yeah, you don't have to get it exactly on point. So, but, if that's better the gun you have than the one you wish you had and you don't, so I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I don't know, maybe tell me why you choose that gun. Is it like money? Is it because it feels good in your hand? I don't know. Ole says, loving the idea, but have to go early mass tomorrow. I appreciate that. It's very good. Backstabber says, well, I like the idea of Powerhouse handguns. Ever tried S&W 500 revolver? Otherwise, what about a 10mm pistol? I haven't shot a 500 and I haven't shot a 10mm. Again, those kind of handguns are kind of more for like entertainment value. It's nice to shoot them at the range. And yeah, for home defense. But again, you got to be a bit careful. Where do you live? You shoot a S&W 500 or even a 10mm in like an apartment block in the United States. You're gonna, even if you're a good shot, maybe you'll hit the bad guy. You'll go through 3 walls, 4 apartments, hit 3 kids and an old lady. You have to consider backstop. You have to consider, like, that was part of our training. Was like, but the backstop was like, as you bring up the gun, it was like, who are you shooting? Why are you shooting? And what's the backstop? So it was like target, backstop, backstop, target. It was like one thing, and that depends on you and how you think. But again, Italian homes tend to have walls built out of brick, and so does most of Europe. So I still don't think, for home defense, I probably wouldn't go for like a 50 caliber or anything like that, because again, what if the guy is just standing outside your kid's room? Again, I know how tall my kids are. If the guy's standing up, fine, But then I also know in the kids' bedroom, maybe they're sleeping on bunk beds, and so do you, don't you? You got to keep these things in mind, and also what do you want the gun for? If it's just to play around with, to enjoy, get what you like. Hell, you live once. I mean, personally, if I had a shitload of money, I would get 2 ivory handled 50 calibers Desert Eagles just to play. I like that, okay? But that's not like a carry gun. That's not really a working gun. Unless you're really pissed off with some in Minecraft, right? Have you ever shot a Jericho pistol? No, I've shot its big brother, the Desert Eagle. Apparently, Jericho pistols are also very good, very reliable. But I don't know it. I haven't shot it. So Matthew Clark says 6'1", 175 athletic, nice ass. Just the wrong channel, boy. Yeah, you're a big enough guy. So I don't know, unless you got very small hands, magnificent but small hands. We're gonna do great things with your small hands. Unless you're one of those guys, you probably have decent sized hands. I wouldn't worry too much about like as a trucker, do you really need to like worry about concealment so much? Can't you just wear like a lumberjack shirt over things or something? I don't know where you do your work. If it's cold, maybe you're in Mexico and it's really fucking hot, but then it's Mexico. Do you really need to even hide the gun? It's like, can't you just strap on a shotgun and like a couple of 6 guns and strap to your leg? I don't know. Woolly Ram says if firearms. By the way, I've put the link at the bottom in the description for thekurganet.com. And what I will do, if you donate for the gun thing, I will make it completely transparent. If we hit the like €1,000 mark, I'll buy the gun and I'll do a review on that gun, on the 1911, which is cheap for a 1911. And if we don't hit it, you guys tell me. I can either put it to donate it to a friend of ours that is he. I don't want to spoil it too much, but he might be getting engaged. He doesn't have a lot of money. He would like to buy a decent ring. So if I don't hit the €1,000, maybe I'll just help him out with that, because he is a Sede, he is a Catholic, and he wants to, marry a really good girl. They're quite young, so maybe I'll do that. But I will do like an open book thing. So if you do donate something, it's not just gonna go, in my pocket to buy more coffee or whatever the fuck. I don't even drink coffee that much. But anyway, you know what I'm saying. If firearms are not a legal option, what would you recommend as a personal zombie repellent? Let's talk hypothetically now. For example, when I was living in South Africa, before I got my gun license, which took a while, there's all sorts of illegal things which I would never advise anybody to do. But again, depends, home defense or street defense. The thing is, if you're like gonna be assaulted in the street by somebody armed with a handgun, my personal advice is take out your wallet very slowly and hand it over and sort of go, okay, thank you very much, sir. I'm now going to close my eyes and count to 50 while you take my wallet and run off. But sometimes you don't have an option. I personally know people that had to confront people with handguns. I'm not going to mention anything. And let's just say this was in Minecraft. Some guy gets stopped by a guy with a gun who shows he's got a gun, and he's like, hey, we're going on a, one of those like gangster types, and it's in a dark alley, and there are no witnesses, and this guy's like, fuck, I just know that I'm not going to get past this guy. I'm not going to be able to walk my way out of it. But he had a knife on it, and as the guy reached for the gun, he got his knife and he just opened his throat and ran away. And that worked for him, So again, it depends on what you mean. If you're worried about getting mugged by somebody that's armed with a firearm and you don't have a firearm, and even if you do have a firearm, if you get jumped and you're surprised, maybe just play possum or whatever. Doesn't mean that you have to fight. I used to train guys, and these young kids are like 17. He got mugged by a guy with a knife who was like twice his size, and he was, a 17-year-old skinny kid. And he says, I got scared and I gave him my phone, and like the guy took my phone and ran off, and I felt really bad about myself. And I was like, dude, you did everything right. You're 17 years old. The guy was a grown man. He had a knife. He's a thug. And what the fuck? You're gonna get killed over a fucking phone? Just give him the fucking phone. It doesn't matter. And don't worry about the ego thing, because it bugs you. It like fucking erodes at you and it like pisses you off. And I know that because when I was 10 years old, the guy, I was sitting in my mom's car and I was eating an orange or something and I threw the peel out. And this guy came up and said, "Hey, you shouldn't litter." And I was like, "Yeah, he's kind of right." So I got out and like to throw the peel back in the car. And he like reached in, grabbed my mom's like wallet or whatever was there and ran off with it. And I was like, "Fuck." And I started to chase him. I was 10. The guy was like in his 20s or something. Plus, he was a black dude in Africa, like he obviously got away. And like by the time my dad came, and I told him the whole story, I was so pissed off with myself. I was crying from like being angry and like how stupid I was. And the guy fucking fooled me. And I was like, "I'm sorry, Dad. I'm sorry. I chased him. I ran as hard as I could, but I didn't manage to get him." And my dad looked at me and goes, "You're 10. Even if you had caught him, what the fuck were you gonna do? You stupid idiot. Just stay in the car. You did nothing wrong. It's fine." And he was like, the guy stole a bunch of money because he was like, my dad was paying wages to his guys and whatever. So, I know the feeling that it bugs you. It's like you like, you feel like a failure or whatever. But put it out of your head. Just think about it logically. Like when my dad told me that, I was like, yeah, fuck, what would have I done if I'd grown? I was literally half his height and, a quarter of his weight. I was like, I'm a 10-year-old kid against a fit 20-something-year-old, like, grown man. What the fuck would I have done? It's like power of the white skin. I mean, really, it's just be logical about it. And, it is what it is. Sometimes you're going to get mugged or whatever. There's things like pepper spray and stuff like that, but it depends who you're getting jumped by. And I don't know the legalities of where you are, like, for example, knuckle dusters are very legal in many countries. But you get punched with a knuckle duster, and that's going to ruin your whole day. Knives are illegal in many countries. And like I said, I know a guy that saved his own life because he had a knife. I knew him years ago. And pepper spray can delay things, but look, like me and my dad, because we worked in security and all that for a while. We got the latest pepper spray. And we're like, "Oh, does this stuff really work?" And I'm like, "I don't know, Dad. Do you think that it would stop you from shooting somebody if a guy sprayed you with that? Let's try it out, son. Okay, you spray me first, and I spray you." I'm like, "Ah, thanks, Dad. All right." So I sprayed him, and he was like, "Yeah, fuck, it stings. Yeah, but I could throw my gun, fire, reload. Yeah, yeah. Nah, it doesn't do shit. You want to try?" And I was like, can't really say no now, can I? I mean, so he sprayed me, and I was like, "Yeah, it burns like a bastard, but yeah, I can still see through the tears, and I can draw and fire and reload, and fuck it, it's nothing, you know." But then, we both, my dad and I, spent our years. I spent probably more time than he did, getting punched in the face regularly, several times a week, just for fun. That was like the training. So you get a broken nose. A guy can break my nose, and I'll just be like, and I'll carry on. I'm not saying it won't distract me for like half a second, but most people, you break their nose, they'll be like in tears, rolling around, like holding their face, won't be able to see shit. But I've had my nose broken a few times. I've had ribs cracked. I've had like bones broken. So it's what you're used to. And again, if I got mugged by myself, again, depends who. I'm in my 50s now. I got kids. Like, yeah, maybe I'll just give him a wallet. I remember once I did a seminar where a guy was saying, "Oh, but what if I mug you? I've got a knife." And he came at me with a real knife, for demonstration. There was all the people. And I was like, "Well, the guy's mugging you with a knife." And I just slowly said, "No, no, no, here's my wallet." And I just put my wallet a little bit off to the side to draw his attention to it. And as he looked there, I kicked, I kicked his hand, and his knife flew off. But that was systemic. He asked me to do that 1,000 times again. I don't know that I'd be able to do it. But I kicked his knife, and it just like I hit him exactly in the right spot and whatever. Because again, I wasn't tense. I wasn't worried. I've had situations in buses and stuff where people are like, trying to do shit, and I stopped it because again, I wasn't worried. I wasn't scared. So it was like very easy to end the situation. But I've had years and years and years of training, of like, facing people and doing all sorts of shit, like having arresting people, stopping people. So it depends on your training as well, because most people, when they get faced with a violent situation, it's sudden, it's scary. There's usually more of them than there is of you. Uh, I used to sometimes get into a situation on purpose just to like see what the fuck would happen. So that's a little bit touched in the head. Don't go do that. You know. So it depends what you're comfortable with. I mean, joke, no homo. Thanks for the review. Willie Ram says, "Do Glocks dance in the hand?" For me, most guns that aren't like barrel heavy are uncomfortable. Not necessarily all of them, but I'm talking full-sized firearms. For example, one of the reasons I like the Target 22 pistols is because they're very front heavy. And I have instinctively, I don't know why, I don't know if it's whatever past life or whatever, but I've got like a cowboy way of shooting a gun. Even rifles, same. It's a very dynamic, floating, moving type of thing. So while they teach you to like lock everything and hold the gun stiff and then pull the trigger, that's not my natural way of shooting. I can shoot like that, but that's not my best way of shooting. It's not my natural instinctive way of shooting. My way of shooting is draw, fire, boom, but everything is moving. Everything is constantly moving. Even when I'm firing the next shot, one shot leads into the next in terms of like boom, 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 boom. There's like a rhythm. I can't explain it to you. It's like dancing or music or something. And I'm not a good dancer or anything, but like with firearms, the weight of the gun tells me where the next bullet's gonna go. And if it's front heavy, like the 22 target pistols, I basically can't miss with those guns. Similarly with a long revolver, like a cowboy gun, like a 6-inch, like 44 or black powder gun, or literally single action cowboy guns, they just come up well for me. So that's my take on it. Semi-auto pistols are not really my favorite. I love the look of the 1911, which is why I want to get one. But they've got that safety on the back strap, and that safety doesn't necessarily work for me. On a 1911, I have to consciously remind myself to hold it tight, because otherwise I don't disengage the safety. A lot of people like pin that safety in so it doesn't work anymore, so that it's automatically, you just have the side safety. But the 45, the 1911, comes up nice for me as a gun. The safety is a bit of a problem. Another gun that comes up wonderfully was the one of the first polymer gun, the Smith & Wesson 40, with a polymer. They usually have like a stainless steel slide or blued slide, but the rest of it is polymer. That gun fit my hand like a glove, and it was beautiful, and I shot perfectly with it. Only one tiny problem: my thumb would hit the magazine ejection port with every shot. So I would like shoot once, and then the magazine would drop out, and I was like, "Fuck!" And no matter what I did, my thumb would end up there instinctively. And I shot well with it. But the perfect gun, but they need to put the magazine extractor somewhere else. So you got to play with the gun to see what works for you. I don't like Glocks. They seem to me to kick a bit too much, and they're like just one of those that you have to hold stiff and just like brute force it out. Glocks don't do it for me. What about 686 plus Smith & Wesson 3-inch barrel in 357? Of course, yeah, 686 with GP100, great guns. 357 is probably my favorite caliber. I know people talk about the 40 S&W, but the 357 Magnum is probably my favorite caliber. It's a caliber that works well for me. I can shoot that like at full speed. It doesn't bother me at all, and doesn't kick as much as the 44 Magnum. And in terms of performance, like one-shot stops, the 357 Magnum doesn't have a huge difference from the 44 Magnum at all. And it's got a marginal difference between that and the 41 Magnum, which is actually the best one-stop shot caliber. So yeah, 3 inch of course is I guess a carry gun. I would probably go for 4 inch. But yeah, a revolver like for self-defense, bad situation, excellent. You're not gonna get a jam, or if you do, you just pull the trigger again. A 3 inch barrel is sort of like, as the Sicilians say, if you have to shoot a guy with a sawn-off shotgun, which is of course illegal, but we're talking about mafia people, and yes, I'm talking about actual mafia people who said this, and people that know that have actually shot people. My dad used to work with some guys in Italy that were like mafia tribes, and then you hear the war stories and stuff. It was an old man that was climbing up pylons. My dad's like, "Fucking, that guy's like 80 years old. Why the fuck you letting him climb up there? He could fall." And like, that guy'll never fall. He spent 20 years climbing trees because he shot the mayor of this little village in Sicily. Pissed him off. I don't know. Fucked his wife. I don't know what he did. But like he blew the guy open in the town square with a sawn-off shotgun, with a lupara, like in the middle of the square. And then he ran off into the hills, and he would see the carabinieri, you'd see the police coming because he used to sleep in trees, and you'd see them from far away, climb the tree and run off. For 20 years, they didn't catch him. After 20 years, he gave himself up, and he said, fucking, I'm tired of living in trees. So he gave himself up. They gave him another 20 years, and then he came out and started working in this construction business. But anyway, these guys, there were quite a few that had been in jail for murder and stuff like that and come out. The Sicilian mafioso statement about shooting people is like, well, if you have to kill a guy, make sure you use a sawn-off shotgun and you shoot him within 2 meters. Within 2 meters, not more than 2 meters, because you get excited, you might miss. And if you have to shoot a guy with a handgun, you should be shaking his hand. While you shake his hand with the other gun, you just dun 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 dun. That way you don't miss. That's because the primary purpose of these people is not to not get caught, is to fucking kill you. So yeah, if you got that attitude, a 3 inch 357, you're not gonna do any long range shots. But then I don't know if you guys know, but the average handgun shootout distance is less than 2.5 meters. That's 2.5 big steps. And I don't, and most of them fire multiple shots, like 2-digit shots, both sides. So you're talking about like some 20 something rounds at 2.5 meters, and most of them miss. So if you just train to draw and fire and hit your target as quick as you can without shooting yourself in the ass, be safe. First, learn to draw and fire with an empty gun thousands of times. Then go to a range where you can do that, a dynamic range or whatever, draw and fire there. And if you can just draw and fire your gun and hit what you're shooting at within 5 meters, first shot, you're better than like 99% of people that actually work with a gun. So, Matthew Clark says, or Mossberg 590 14-inch barrel, short grip, forgot name of grip, think gangster movies. Yeah, I don't know if by short grip you mean without the shoulder stock. With shotguns, not a fan of not having a shoulder stock. Always have a shoulder stock. And I'm not a fan of pistol grips on shotguns either. But that's because I grew up firing pump actions, Remington shotguns. And there are very nice Winchesters, which are normal shotgun look, but it's short barrel, holds 8 shots. There are some new shotguns that I looked at. I looked at getting one of these, and they do have the pistol grip, and they do have the pump action thing. Some come with a stock, some not. I would get one with a stock. They have 2 barrels, and you can store, if you use the shorter rounds, you can store up to 25 rounds of shotgun shells inside that gun. Now, for home defense, I don't think anything can really beat that, because you got 2 shots, and okay, you've got this weird pump action is like a pistol grip instead of the pump action I'm used to, but you might be able to modify that. I forgot the name, K-Tech or Caltech, something like that. 25 fucking rounds. I mean, in a house, even if you get attacked by a horde of zombies, you can like go for a while, So I mean, 8 shots is already overkill, I think, for home defense. But because also imagine, unless they're actual fucking zombies, or you're in Mogadishu, after you shoot like 10 times the people in your house that are trying to kill you, how many guys have you got there? If you're not a shit shot with a shotgun within house distances, you're gonna splatter people with every bullet. So what? After 10 times, you still have 15 shots in your gun without having to do anything. And what are the other guys gonna do? Like the crowd outside, are they all gonna charge through every entry point? Yeah, So yeah, I Mossberg, nothing wrong with a Mossberg. I got a Winchester because they're cheaper, but does the same job. Backstabber says, "Man, that'd be cool having a Mauser. Hope you find it someday." Who knows where that's gone. It probably got confiscated. It was illegal. It was from the war. But yeah, the actual Mauser, the original Mauser, was a brilliant gun. Did you know that the Mauser pistol had like single shot, 3-shot, and fully automatic? So you could have a 25-shot little magazine going. It was the coolest gun. So Sam Wereb says, "Very thorough answer for my question. Thank you." Sam Wereb says, "Hey Matthew, I've owned that exact revolver and I loved it. It's big and shoots like a Cadillac drives. You can practice with 38 reloads too." That's right, yeah. Work in Chicago. Well, if you work in Chicago and you're in America, Matthew, okay, let's say I was working in Chicago. I was driving a truck that carries doubloons of gold. What would I have on me? In my truck, I would probably build some secure way to actually store it in the truck, like a proper metal lock mechanism for when I leave the truck. I would probably have a shotgun in the truck. And then pistol wise, I would want something that there's no chance it jams ever. So probably a revolver. But, not necessarily. I mean, I'd probably go for the 357 that I used to work with, the 4-inch 357, and a shotgun in the truck, because depending on what you transport, I don't know. But if you're gonna get ambushed, or actually get like a roadblock type situation, which would be stupid, because if you've got an 18-wheeler and they're trying to block you with cars, you just drive right on through. You might get some dings, but they're sure as shit not gonna be enjoying it. 357, if again, I'm thinking hijacking. I'm thinking worried about a guy appearing at my window, okay, in those terms. If that's not your primary concern, and your primary concern is like random gangbangers shooting at you just because your truck is red or whatever, and you want to like throw back a small cloud of lead, then a Glock's probably not a bad choice, because it's got a shitload of ammo in there. Maybe a Beretta 92. You got 15 shots in there. I like the Beretta PX4 Storm because of the ergonomic lines, or if your thumb doesn't land on the trigger, that's Smith & Wesson in 40. But that sort of comes down to personal choice. And my concerns there would be, one, no misfires, no jams, or if there is, I don't have to clear the pistol, I can just pull the trigger again. That would be my number one thing, which is why a revolver. But that's looking at hijackings more. If you're looking at random gang shootings or stuff, my second concern would be as much ammo as you can have on you. When I used to work as a bodyguard, I used to have 2 speed loaders and a loaded gun, so I'd have 18 shots total. And if the 18 shots is a lot, if you know how to shoot, if you can shoot under pressure, if you can shoot accurately, to me 18 shots was at least 9 dead bodies, even if I double tapped. So that's a lot of people. And then after that, I had a Tanto, which I think I can show you, because I still have it. And there it is. See, it's even got my initials on it. Now this thing, my wife did a divorce activated. She actually cut some cardboard box open with this. And I was like, you do realize that that's like grounds for divorce and possibly homicide. Because with this thing, I don't know if I'll be able to show you. I've got a bit of a beard, but I don't do this at home unless you got a knife like this, because you won't be able to pick it up on the camera. But I can literally shave with this thing. Oh, I have to go up, otherwise I don't keep the hair on the blade. Okay, look guys, I know what I'm doing. Okay, I don't know if you can pick up on that there. You see that little, I know you won't see it. But anyway, this thing is literally, I sharpen it on the leather of the holster. I don't use a stone on this. And it doesn't have a guard, but I don't need one, because once you grip this and you just like move, it's a razor blade basically. And this was my carry knife for many years, because if all else fails and you're within 7 or 8 meters and I know how I'm moving, I'll get you before you can shoot me. So now I've got a bolt patch on one side. So that was my Matthew says, all makes sense, thanks. Wally Ram says, theoretically, if you had to scavenge pistols and ammo from fallen policemen and rent-a-cops, what should you theoretically be looking for? Well, one that works. Again, Russia invades Europe, and everybody goes crazy, zombies, whatever. I don't know what the laws are in other countries. In Italy, they've got a funny thing that if you buy a 9mm in Italy, it's going to be, I never remember which way around it is. They've got 9x21mm and 9x19mm. If I'm not wrong, I think 9x19 is the military normal 9mm round that you all know. The 9x21 is a civilian round that is for the civilian pistols, because there's a funny law in Italy that you cannot have any weapon that uses the same cartridges as the military. Except, of course, carbines and 308 and so on. But you can't have machine guns, and for whatever reason, the 9mm military round, they make the civilian round 2mm longer or shorter, whichever way around it is. I think they make it longer so that it doesn't fit, so that the military round wouldn't fit in your gun, wouldn't work in your gun. But I don't know what you should look out for. Most military and police have 9mm weapons, so they're all compatible with each other in terms of caliber for the most part. There might be some odd exceptions depending on where you live, but that's the thing about police and military. They standardize their weapons, so shit hits the fan scenario, whatever they're using you can use. And if you have a gun in that caliber, unless you're in Italy, but if you're in the States and you've got a 9mm, that's probably the most common round in the United States amongst police. They've all got Glocks and so on. A few like sheriffs and whatever might still be old style and have like a 357 Magnum revolver or whatever, but most cops will have a 9mm. Most military guys will have a 9mm. Again, the odd officer might have a 45 or something like that. But 9mm is probably the most common round. So if you can have, if you've got a gun for, again, apocalypse scenario, right? Hypothetical apocalypse scenario. What do I think are the best guns for that? I think a 2.2 with a suppressor, if you can, if you're a civilian. Because a 2.2 with a suppressor allows me to collect a bunch of guns from whoever. You got to keep in mind also, in a shit it's the fan scenario, what you got to look out for is like groups of people, whether they're military or not, because the numbers are going to get you. But if you've got like a military stop where there's like 4 guys and they're not smart about it, there's like 2 guys like stopping the car and then there's 2 guys on the sides, and you've got 2 guys in a car that know what they're doing, you could easily relatively safely take out, and if they're good shots and they're like, they've got that willpower / psycho mentality, and as soon as you get stopped, you go, oh, hello, officer, And when it comes to your window, you're like, doom, doom. You take out 2 guys on one side, the other guy takes out 2 guys on the other side. That's a 4-man stop that's unlikely to stop anybody that really wants to get through. But if you got 10 guys at a car stop, then that's a different story. Also patrols, how big are the patrols? Like when I was in Venice, the patrols were always 3-man. In Kazakhstan, the patrols were always 3-man, which is smart. And in Kazakhstan, sometimes the patrols didn't walk around. They just stood in place as a triangle, back to back with each other. So they've got full 360 view. They're all armed. They've all got their weapon in their hands, and they just stand there. In Italy, they would stop people for papers. There were always 3 people, usually 2 soldiers and a policeman, or 2 policemen and 1 soldier. So they were mixing and coordinating different branches, which is smart. And the guy who stopped to ask for the papers would be up front. Then the second guy would be off to the side, and the third guy would be a little distance back. So you were fucked. If you didn't really know exactly what you were doing and you got stopped for papers, even if you didn't know what you're doing, you'd be in shit. And those guys were switched on. They're young, but you could see they were if the shit hits the fan, I'm gonna shoot. They had that kind of look. If you were, for whatever reason, let's say you're the good guy and you're in a bad country that uses those kind of techniques, that they've got 3 guys come and stop you for papers, the thing to do, counterintuitively, is not to wait for them to ask you for papers. Is to observe them and go up and just, while you're doing something else, reading a book, get as close as you can to the 3 of them when they're not in the alert mode. So they're all close together. And even if all you have is a very sharp knife, you can go slash, slash, stab. And chances are, because they've got the long arms usually, that you could get away with that. But again, these are all hypothetical hit the shit scenario. Don't go fucking killing random cops because you're crazy, okay? Seramer says John Wick style. Beretta 92 series. Yes, I like the Beretta 92. Aesthetically, no, I don't like it that much, but it's a very good gun. It's very reliable. I'm sure it's happened, but I've not heard of a 92 misfire. Again, if you buy decent ammo, you replace it regularly. You don't put so much oil in your gun that it drips into the fucking primers. If you maintain your gun properly, you clean it every time after you shoot it, you don't leave it drenched in oil, and you change your ammunition regularly. Like I said, I'm sure it's happened because it's a semi-automatic pistol, but as far as I know, the 92s are very, very reliable, and you got a lot of ammo. You got 15 plus 1, I think, or 14 plus 1, I can't remember. It's a bit back heavy because of all the ammo, but it's a gun that's got a nice, decent sized barrel. It works very well. So yeah, Mr. Smith, I got no issues with the Beretta 92 at all. I think it's a good gun. Nationalist says 357 is nice because in a pinch you can toss 38s and 38 special in it. Yep. Saramer says sawed off greater than all. Yeah, in America, I think there are some, what effectively is a sawn off shotgun, but it isn't. It's like some kind of weird, it's legal, but it's, I think, either just 18 inches or just under 18 inches or something, because it's got a pistol grip or something like that. It's basically like a side-by-side shotgun that's legal, even though it's basically a sawn-off shotgun. So if you're in the States and that's legal, great. I think in the rest of the world, a sawn-off shotgun is completely legal. In Italy, any cutting of the barrel is considered illegal, even if you keep it at the normal length. So let's say you got a normal, real long barrel and you cut it down a little bit shorter to what is still legal, because you've altered the barrel, that is a crime. So, sawn-off shotguns are just a huge no-no. But yeah, for home defense, or, in a shit hits the fan scenario, whatever, if you're in Mad Max world, the laws are not really your primary concern. Like eating and not getting killed by the zombies is your primary concern, then it's a different story. What's the point of a sawed-off shotgun? Oh, holy ram, I'm shocked and hurt. I mean, I thought you were a religious man and you understood. First of all, the sawn-off shotgun in the apocalyptic scenario means that you're like Mad Max, which you're just cool. A sawn-off shotgun is primarily a close quarters fucking nuclear weapon. Um, if it was a zombie hit the fan scenario, even the I don't think, because it's 8+1. Yeah, I can't really, I wouldn't be able to like make the shotgun up like any shorter, because the extension tube that holds all the barrels is pretty much flush with the barrels, so that's there. But I've also got like hunting guns and whatever. A sawn-off shotgun is great for in the house. If you're moving around, you're already in the wrong place or whatever, and even if it's only got a couple of shots in it, like an over and under, or I would love, if it was legal, I would love to have an over and under sawn off, like 2-shot shotgun, Mad Max style. Is it practical? Yeah, you can't hunt with it really. If you're shooting snakes, okay, but it's, again, I'm talking apocalyptic scenario. I would have one strapped to my leg. Just because, again, yeah, snakes, yeah, you're in a little cave. Fuck it. Maybe I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm hiding under my rock and like, oh, there's a guy close by and I haven't quite got my eyesight right, or he shines a flashlight in my face, and I don't want to be worried about like target placement. I'm getting older and lazier. I just like, boom, pull both triggers on 2 buckshots and like, yeah, whatever was in front of me and like basically a cloud this big for the next 5, 6, 10 meters. I don't have to worry about it. I can just go back to sleep. So that's what it's for. It's basically the hammer of God within like, 10-meter radius sort of thing. Seramer says, for people with bad aim. There you go. Getting older, the myopia starts to set in. You've been reading your book with your reading glasses on, and some guy just interrupts you while you're drinking your beer, and you don't want to know what his name is. You just want to get rid of him. Easy to carry a sawed-off undetected. Yeah, there are so many zombies here in the States too. I'm sure there are. Keltec, yes, thank you, Slanty Chauffeur. But Keltec is that shotgun that you can shove in 25 rounds into. It's just, I own the 6.86 3-inch, just bought the 43X, which I'm regretting. Not only your review, but the general feel, but like the reliability. Yes, looking into Mossberg for the truck. Guys, if you find this helpful, do me a favor. I don't care if it's $5. It's just to like let me know that it's worthwhile. Okay. Yeah, I do want to hit the €1,000 mark to get my toy that I want. I don't need it, but I want it. So that would be great if I hit that. But just throw me a couple of bucks just to see what the interest level is. There's only 15 of you here, so I don't expect to hit the $1,000 mark. And hey, if you're a rich guy, throw me $3,000, whatever. I'll buy the guy the ring. I'll tell you what I'll do with it. Okay, if you do throw me a donation and it doesn't hit the target, I don't know, I'll do something cool with it. I'll either donate it to somebody or give it back to you guys, or if it hits the grand, I'll buy the gun and show you. So it's not like I'm not gonna spend it on coke and whores. My wife would object. Mostly if I don't share the coke. No, just kidding. But yeah, it's a tough question though. For I don't know a whole liquid sugar. If anyone wondering, still looks like gasoline. Well, I'm sure liquid sugar is probably worth quite a lot of money. Yeah, maybe I would go for the 92, Beretta 92, maybe. Or this, oh, and one that I forgot that's also very reliable is the 6 hour. 6 hour P230, I think, is one that I would consider getting. Um, I'm not a huge fan of like little torches and shit. You know, people put all sorts of stuff on the Piccolini, Pica, Piccolini rails, no, Piccolini rails, whatever you call them. You know, they put like torches and laser dots and all sorts of shit. Uh, you know, I'm a wise old man and I don't like all that fancy shit. Um, I think putting a torch on a gun is stupendously stupid because it's telling everybody exactly where to shoot because they can see my light. So I would never put that on. Red dot, maybe. You know those other red dots? I've never used those. I'm really old style iron sights type of guy. You know, maybe with the tri dot for nighttime shooting or whatever. But again, you know, System also has given me a different take on handguns. Okay, here I'm gonna tell you something that people are gonna say is bullshit, and I get it. But you know, if you've read my Sistema book, if you bought the Sistema book and you read that, there's nothing in there that's bullshit. That's why I wrote it. I wrote things that I know people would say, "Oh, this is bullshit," but I've lived through those things. It's real. You know the film with Kevin Costner, the Bodyguard film, where there's Whitney Houston and Kevin Costner. There's a scene in there where he's like in the forest and he just like closes his eyes to like find where to shoot the guy, and he like comes pretty close. That looks like, you know, Hollywood bullshit, but it's not. It's not Hollywood bullshit. And again, I wouldn't advise to do that, you know, in a built up area or whatever. But if you're out in the forest with some psycho hunting you down and you know where your house is and your family is and you're out in the forest and you have a certain type of training, that can work. Uh, that's all I'll say about that. So go with your instincts, trust your instinct on what gun is best for you. You know, like what it has to. I personally think a gun has to feel good in your hand, and you have to be as accurate as possible with it. Look, I'm not saying, you know, if the shit hits the fan tomorrow, I'm in the world, I'm in Mad Max world, and all I've got is a Glock in front of me. I'm not gonna say no to it. I'll take it. You know, hell, I'll take a four-shot 22 Derringer if that's all there is. But it's not my preferred ideal gun. So try and get your preferred ideal gun that feels good to you. Worry about shot placement first, number of rounds second. I didn't worry about having only 6 rounds before I have to reload with a speed loader, which is slower than a semi-auto. Because how many guys am I going to get jumped by? And you know, even in a shit hits the fan scenario, unless I'm part of a unit of like 30, 40, 50 guys or whatever, I'm going to be like, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys? My carry gun is going to probably be a revolver. Because my carry rifle is probably, you know, like some long range thing or urban situation, a shotgun. And the last thing I want, whether I'm, you know, let's say the two extremes. Let's say I'm a long range sniper or I'm going door to door, like because I have to clear an area. What's the last fucking thing I want with my handgun? For it to jam, for it not to be reliable, for it not to work because I've crawled through like 4 kilometers of mud and shit to get to my position and shoot some guy as a sniper. And then I finally find an enemy soldier right in front of me. And I don't, you know, the rifle, I can't get it around. I pull out my handgun and it jams because it's a semi-auto. I don't want that. I'm going door to door in an urban situation where I'm using a shotgun because, you know, engagement distance is like 5-10 meters. And I've just found a room full of like terrorists. I've emptied my shotgun. I pull out my handgun. The last thing I want to do is to jam or to have some weird little safety that like I forgot about in the panic. I've never panicked in actual situations, but people do. I want a revolver. I can just pull the trigger and go. I don't want a fucking safety on it. I don't want shit on it. So regardless of whether close combat or long distance, I want a reliable handgun. My backup, which is my handgun, because my long gun is my primary weapon, has to be something that cannot go wrong. That's my take on it. And then, if I'm in Mad Max world and it's just me, I'll want a sawn off like over and under though, not side by side. Just, and a big dog, not a little one. Although little ones can be cool. I'm just saying. Kurgan, do you have thoughts about pistol caliber carbine? Yeah, it's a good real apocalyptic scenario. I believe, I don't want to lie to you now, but I think there's a lever action Winchester. I think you can get them in 357 Magnum and in 44 Magnum. Now, there I would go for the 44 Magnum because the 44 Magnum pistol cartridge in a lever action Winchester, I think, is a decent rifle-ish round, as in it'll perform almost like a rifle round. And with added barrel length and so on, I think it can be fairly accurate up to like a few hundred. Again, this is iron sight stuff. I probably wouldn't bother with a scope on that. And if your backup weapon, if you're a decently big guy and you've got a 44 Magnum handgun, why not? I know that you can also get that little floating. You can actually put the whole rifle inside its stock and you throw it in the water and it floats, and it's a 2.2 long rifle. And again, that's a very good survival weapon because a 2.2 you can shoot birds, ducks, animals, or small animals to feed yourself, and it'll also work in a small pistol. So yeah, as a survival slash hunting, if you're the kind of hunter that likes to actually hunt, track things, get close to them, because you would have to get close. Even with a 44 Magnum round, I would want to be really quite close to an animal so that I don't wound it or whatever, and get correct shot placement. I'd have to trust my rifle that it shoots accurately and so on. Yeah, I got nothing against that as a survivalist type weapon. As a home defense or slash working weapon, no, I probably wouldn't go for that. Matthew says, enough about my life, but appreciate the review and content. 10 out of 4, Kurgan. Okay, well, all right, that's a good score. Show me the love by going to thekurganet.com, and there's a donate button there. Just make sure you leave me a note what it's for, right? Because people sometimes send an odd amount of money. I've had like guys send like a couple $100 just because of the Catholic stuff. But this is specific to the gun stuff, so make sure you write me a little thing, tell me what gun you want me to review or that you enjoyed it or whatever. Nationalist says, careful in Chicago, Matthew. The new no cash bail law is gonna make it extra crazy. No cash bail law. Oh. Liquid sugar, do you mean HFC syrup? Yep. HFC syrup. Okay. What kind of ammo would you shoot for 9mm grain, HP, etc.? Any brands? Brands are. I don't go by brand. When I think you're in the States, and I'm a little bit out of touch with what the latest technology is in the States with regard to 9mm, because again, I don't like 9mm in Italy because of what I've explained about the civilian military round, and also in Italy they're pretty strict about what kind of rounds you can have in your gun. They have to be mostly full metal jacket and stuff like that because they're worried about hollow points and so on. But when I was working, I used Corbons, and I think you've got I think Corbons, Hydroshock. At one point, I know that they had made them illegal in some states, I think, because they called them cop killers or whatever. But the plus P rounds in 9mm are good. I would say they start to become comparable to the 357 in terms of stopping power, the plus Ps. but they're very hard on your gun. So if you shoot them a lot, plus P's will eventually stress your frame, which, you know, if you practice, my adage has always been like practice as you would in real life. You know, like even when we were training in systems, sometimes you just wear jeans and t-shirt because that's what you'd be wearing. You know, practice as you're going to be found. So if you're going to be practicing with plus P, if you're shooting enough to be decent to practice, you're going to stress your gun. But as an actual round, you know, it's good. Core bonds, expanding, hollow points, whatever. I would generally always go for that because stopping power is a little bit better. Your backstop is a little bit better. You know, if you've got a full metal jacket 9mm, that thing can travel through a bunch of, but you know what they show you in the movies, like John Wick just grabs a guy, holds him in front of him, and some guy with a like MP5 Heckler and Koch 9mm goes grrr, and the body just gets riddled full of holes, and Keanu is perfectly fine. But that's bullshit. A 9mm will go through 3 people, no, without even breaking a sweat. And if you get unlucky and it doesn't hit any like bones, it'll go through like 10. You know, there's stuff that bullets do crazy shit. You know, like I know of a 9mm. I hit a guy, went through him, bounced into the ground, traveled 19 inches underground in dirt, and then came out and ricocheted and hit another guy and wounded him. It's not supposed to be able to do that. Okay, a 9mm is not supposed to be able to travel 19 inches in dirt, but it did. So, you know, what I would go for is something that gives you massive like stop, but it is fast enough. One of the reasons I don't like 45s, the 1911 caliber, is because they're a very slow bullet. You know, if you're in Alaska and you got your winter coat on with a couple of thick jumpers and a fat leather wallet with a bunch of credit cards in it and maybe a stack of bills, and a guy shoots you with that 45 and he hits you in your wallet, you're probably going to be okay. You probably won't go through it. You know, a large phone directory might stop a 45 after it's gone through a couple of winter clothing layers. It won't stop a 357 or a plus P. So, but you know, on the other hand, you don't want to be shooting a 357 Magnum in like a, you know, a cardboard box, one of those apartments you guys have in the States that's all built out of gypsum board, because that'll go through, you know, God knows how many apartments. Revolvers are so much better and cooler in my opinion. Ah, man after my own heart. Vincent Garzon, are you guys a police? Hey, that is why keep communities safe in Florida. You're cool. Vincent Garzon, zombie, the freak is on. Okay. Vincent Garzon is just shooting his mouth off. Okay, chill, Vincent, or I'm gonna ban you. Wooly Ram says, flashlights for night work is dumb. After years in the night shift, if I had to use a light source, I would want something diffuse, wide and very soft, just enough to see silhouettes. Nah, I wouldn't even want that. Ambient light or starlight scopes if you're gonna have to use a scope. And if the moon is out, I don't need any lights. Exactly. Okay, let's ban Vincent. Okay, ban Vincent. He's too stupid to be here. Okay. Sam Werb says, this man knows guns and how to fight with them. I pledged 25 for the 1911. Thank you, Sam. That's awesome. Blood Jones says, Hornady, Critical Duty, and Critical Defense are awesome. Okay. I haven't used those, so I don't know. Well, that was a weird. You get some fucking weirdos on this channel, don't you? Before I ban them. Okay, so that's about it. I've been going for what, an hour and a half. I meant this to be quite a short one. But anyway, the link for the if you want to support the 1911 must-have fund, I think if you just type this, there you go. It does have ivory handles. I'll admit to that. There you go. Oh yes, one more Spark Boy to the graveyard, indeed. But I could have told you, Vincent, this chat was never meant for one as low IQ as you. Well, the gammas get the gamma treatment, don't they? What kind of a weirdo does that anyway? It's just strange. I mean, are these people on drugs or what? Anyway, this is the last of my Suave. It's called Suave. Little white wine. And one of these days, I gotta get back to my primary weapon. I'll show it to you. Risking waking up all the kids. But yes, you know, they did a movie about this. It was called El Mariachi. But what they didn't tell you is that the real weapon was not a guitar. Oh no. No siree, it was not. It was in fact this. This was the primary weapon. Is the primary weapon. There you go. I haven't played this, and by played I mean made some noise out of it, well over a year. So I don't know if I even remember how to hold it. Never mind. Let's see now. Okay, 1, 2, 3. There we go. Oh no, that's it. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's it there. This one. See, I've got a problem in that I can't feel half of my left hand, so. Have I got this the right way around? I don't think. Why? No, this way. Ah, that's terrible. What is Fleur East gonna think of me? No, I think it is that way around. This is so bad. Or good. The fact that no noise is coming out of this is probably a good thing for you guys. No. No. That can't be right. Oh, I forgot all I'd learned. This is tragic. I'm ashamed. I am ashamed. This is like a man that forgot how to load his gun. It's terrible. I'll get back to it. I will. In fact, I think I'm going to do something about this tomorrow. Oh, that's what it was. Yeah. And let me try the wrong way around. I'm getting there. No. Oh, it's definitely this way. And that's why no cats will be coming to this home anymore. You can see why this is my primary weapon. I mean, would you rather be shot with a handgun or have to listen to this? frustrated. You'd rather be shot with a shotgun in the face. Yes, I will have to get back to this. I don't know when I will ever find the time, but before I die, it is my mission to find a way to at least once be able to play one short song on this instrument. You know, you could donate money for me not to play the saxophone too, and you know, minimum fee for that is probably like $1,000 a pop. But you know, you do what you need to. I won't hold it against you if you know, if you decide that I'm just too good to play publicly like this. Yes. What do you mean you've never seen a fully brass gun before? Clearly you're not a lover of the 1851 black powder navy and 36 caliber or 44, my preferred choice. Oh no, it's not a tuba, it's a saxophone. Let's just see what that did to your ears. Yeah, it was very educational. I think I'll be more considerate with home defense weaponry. Take care. Good night, rest well. Oh, it's not doomsday just yet. Joe C says, take cover. Speaking of weapons, did you get any saxophone lesson from Adam? Adam doesn't play the saxophone. Not that I know of, anyway. Let's hear some George Michael. There you go. I'm writing your name down, Setimer. George Michael. Sounds like furniture being moved in the apartment above. Directed sound energy weapon. Your blowjobs need some work, but not bad, my friend, not bad. Yes, Satimer, I'm written your name down. Backstabber says, yeah, I'm glad I'm a bit deaf. And Israel says, never seen a fully brass gun before. Yeah, been a while though. Nice that the sax still works. Well, there you go. That's my weapon of mass destruction brought out for all of you. And I'm gonna call it a night because it's nearly 2 hours. I made this for this to be quite a short one. Anyway, thank you all, and let me know if you do want specific gun reviews, which I would go into more detail. If you did hit that target, I would actually make it a bit more professional than just my random thoughts. So let me know if it's something that interests you, long arms and short arms. And like I said, no one can know every gun under the sun, but if it is a gun I don't know or haven't shot or don't know anything about, I wouldn't comment on it. And the reviews would be intended for real world application, whether actual or Minecraft. Good night all. God bless every single one of you, and hope you all have a beautiful weekend.